Yeah. So, you wanted to talk about what is exactly that you wanted to talk about with me, or I guess
So I
educate
was
me
wondering if
on?
you wanted to go and I wanted to go and provide a linguistic perspective to things like neopronouns and stuff like that. That was something that we could
Right.
start off with.
Yeah. Sure. That sounds
Um,
interesting.
because from a linguistic perspective, they're perfectly valid.
Hmm.
People always go and say, like, oh, well, I mean, that's not English. You're just making up words. And I'm like, well, you do have to realize that our use of language is subjective. It's not really an objective thing. Language isn't, something that you can hold. It's ethereal.
Hmm.
And as such, it can be bent to the will of the speaker.
Right. I understand what you're saying. I mean,
Um,
basically, the idea that words are social constructs.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I did a duet, I did a stitch with Tyler Bluntman where it's like, she refers to woman, woman refers to female. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Right.
the
Yeah.
only reason that argument works is because you're using English
Hmm.
as the standard. Other languages don't have that. They don't have a difference between he and she
Really?
as pronouns. They're
What languages don't have a difference between he and she?
most of them actually. In the spoken language, Mandarin Chinese doesn't have one.
Hmm.
Various Serbian languages don't have them either. Can't name them. I can't name any specific ones off the top of my head, but there are many.
Hmm.
Um, and by using that argument you are saying that English is somehow the standard for reality,
Hmm.
and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't really hold up because there are many other languages that don't have that, which come
Why?
together.
Is there a particular reason why those languages don't have any genders assigned to them? And like, is it because they're progressive and woke and don't have gender assigned to them, or is it because
Well,
that they're generally just more, they just kind of like project the masculine, language, or the masculine terms onto everybody?
Well, the thing is that language is largely a reflection of the culture of the people who speak it.
Hmm.
So when you have distinctions between male and female, oftentimes it's as such. That is because of the fact that the culture of the people who speak it believe in a gender binary.
Hmm.
Um, Now, obviously, I'm not going to go and say that languages like like Japanese or like Native American language didn't have a distinction between male and female. I'm not trying to say that,
Hmm.
but it didn't reflect into their language as much. They didn't use the language for so long that it kind of just encoded itself into the language.
I see. Yeah, because I would imagine that like I mean, like most cultures, I would say are generally male dominated, and they're not exactly like
Mhm.
super woke or progressive, or not even progressive, but they don't exactly. I don't think most cultures have like an acceptance of anything beyond male and female for the most part. Maybe I'm just being wrong, but like Japan in general, I know is a bit sexist, so I wouldn't imagine that they're just like chilling, vibing on like a gender neutral term to be like
Yeah,
nice. You know what I
it's
mean?
not. It's not like that. There's a wide variety of different factors. When it comes to these things, it's not like some like, oh, language can like influence the way you think. It's not like that. It's just some of them do, some of them don't. And by trying to make an argument using English as your primary source, you're by default making a pretty poor argument.
That's fair.
Um, because the use of neopronouns it's just adding words.
Well,
there's nothing bad with it.
what is a neopronoun? We're not talking about like they them's or anything, right?
No, 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 like Z and Zer and all those.
Yeah,
It's
right.
basically pronouns that people use that are beyond our current standard for pronouns. Um, and I see all these TikToks. It's like, I'm not going to call you a doll. I'm not going to call you doll self. And I'm like, well, why
Hmm.
not? It's because it challenges your preconceptions of what a pronoun is supposed to be.
Hmm. Well, I think that because I wouldn't call anybody doll or doll self, right? But I
Mhm.
just but what's the reason for the like I see I understand the idea of gender of language or words being a social construct. I would
Yeah.
ask what is who's benefiting by me saying like, oh, calling you doll or doll self? Like, are you doing it because you have a legitimate amount of distress associated with being called he, she,
Mhm.
or they or something, or is it because you're just a fucking asshole that just wants to be called doll? Because it seems like a lot of people do a lot of things for attention in some way, and I would say like the neo pronouns thing sounds like an attention grab, especially if you want to be called doll or doll self or meow,
So
which
the thing is,
I don't know if people are
oh yeah,
memeing.
you can keep going.
No, no, no. I had nothing else. I don't know if people are memeing me when they say meow and meow self in the chat.
Well, the thing is that although it's perfectly valid from a linguistic standpoint, it isn't so much. I wouldn't agree to the concept of neopronouns from a sociological standpoint.
Oh, sorry.
Um,
I'm good. I'm listening.
because personally, I'm a gender abolitionist myself.
Mhm.
I believe that gender is just an unnecessary social construct.
You think so?
That not really. I mean, there's obviously. I'm not going to go and try and say that male and female don't exist. Obviously, they do.
Mhm.
But I believe that, similar to race, gender is a social construct which isn't really beneficial in terms of establishing an individual identity. If anything, it kind of distracts in that regard.
Okay. I
Um,
think I can understand what you're saying.
yeah. So, although it makes sense from a linguistic standpoint, it doesn't really make sense from things like sociological standpoint. No.
Okay, so basically you're just saying that like let people's individual identities like rely on themselves rather than, categorizing people into
Yeah,
particular things.
exactly. Yeah, I'm
I
very much so
understand
an
that.
individualist.
I would
Mhm.
say I had a kind of a conversation about like the potential abolishment of like gender in general. I would say that like for me, like if we ever got to a point in society that gender no longer mattered or existed, it really wouldn't bother me. I mean, it's not going to happen in my lifetime, obviously, but it wouldn't really matter. I question the why force it. Most people like and subscribe and enjoy the concept of like gender, especially like just a generalized like gender norms. They're always changing. And I would say like,
Mhm.
why abolish gender now? We can make it like a societal progression towards abolishing, I don't care. But why abolish
Yeah.
it outright now when most people are comfortable with it? Because like really, realistically, the reason that you would abolish gender are for like a very select few people to feel a little bit more comfortable with themselves. But there's such an outlier that like I just really don't find it to be worth it to just completely throw away gender in general. Ugh.
Yeah, I agree. Nice one. I give
Thank
that one
you.
a 7 out of 10.
That's that's half of my stream.
Dude, I swear my girlfriend always rates my burps. It's
Does
hilarious.
she?
Anyways, yeah, it's pitiful, really. But anyways, um, I completely agree. This should very much be so a slow progression
Mhm.
because once you try to force it, it's pretty much just becoming indoctrination at that point.
Right.
What
Yeah.
you really want to do in order to make a not sexless, a genderless society is you really need to go and question people. You need to go and discuss why they believe in gender, why they believe in these things.
Mhm.
Because that's how you go and get people to change their minds. You're not going to go and change people's minds by saying, by hitting them with a frying pan and saying, don't accept gender anymore.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
not how it's going to work.
Mhm.
Um, Linguistically, that's never worked. Um, Let me go and give a bit of a history lesson. So, for the longest time in medieval Europe, Latin was the primary language of literature. And it was forced upon a lot of scribes and a lot of educated people because of the fact that, well, they didn't want to go and question, the societal norm.
Mhm.
Um, and any strong objection to that was met with even greater objection to it. It was only after a long enough time when literacy became more available to the common class that a larger vernacular corpus or a larger amount of text in the local languages saw the fade of Latin. I think that's exactly what's going to happen here. It's not going to be sudden, but rather people are going to become more educated and as such are going to try and just like put gender in a box and then put it to the side and
Mhm.
then just, walk away.
I get that. I mean, listen, I don't think that most Americans, well, I'll just keep it to America to keep it simple. I don't think that they're necessarily ready for like the idea of removing gender. I also don't think that it's like an immediate necessity to remove gender from society. But like, I think that like there is a potential to like slowly remove it. I mean, I think that the acceptance of like trans people, for instance, and people who identify, outside of their sex or gender, I think that that's fine. I think
Mhm.
acceptance of that will slowly lead to like an abolishment of gender, probably over the period of time, which is so very irrelevant to me. Um,
Mhm.
but obviously, like you said, like the forced theory of it, I don't think is going to happen. I do think most people like the idea of. I think most people subscribe to the idea of gender because I don't think gender was created. I think a lot of people make this weird subtextual argument that gender was created by people to maintain some kind of a structure, but humans are just inherently
Mhm.
like to create. They like to categorize things, and I think
Yeah.
that we categorized ourselves through what we used to do. And the reason things are changing so much now is because things are more available. Like, benefiting, like guns, for instance, are just like an equalizer where like men and women become so very equal because it's a gun. You no longer have to worry about. I mean, I know this sounds very silly, but like sword fighting or something, it removes
No,
like
that's
a lot.
exactly what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
you have like a fucking forklift now, so like women can more easily like move objects, which is a good thing, and it makes things like less.
Mhm.
It makes it so that there's less of a requirement to focus on things like particular gender strengths or weaknesses. So. But yeah, I'm fine with it. Eventually, we'll all be
Yeah,
in robot
exactly.
suits, so it won't even matter.
Oh hell yeah,
You
yeah.
know,
I'm down for having a 12-foot robo schlong
that'd be
NGL.
freaking. That'd be pretty crazy. Imagine like connecting
Yeah,
like your nerves to that.
dude.
But
Oh my
honestly,
fucking god.
I don't think girls like big peepees that much. Like I know that some girls love big penises, but I don't know. In my experience, and like maybe they're just trying to make me feel better, but I've slept with a couple, two or three girls that liked like big guys, and like I
Yeah.
wasn't terrible for them, but they were just like not like feeling it. But then a lot of other girls like they're it can be a little too big for them. Like a lot of girls don't like huge, massive schlongs. It's not like super preferable. It can hurt. You know.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a
But
rough.
going back to gender, it's common sense. Like when we were little monkey boys, right? We were like,
Mhm.
okay, well, the females are biologically better at doing like this stuff, and the males are
Yeah,
biologically better at doing this stuff.
like
So
sucking
what we're gonna
penis. Am
do
I
is we're
right?
going, yeah, we're going to pretty much just agree that these people do these things and these people do these things. It's
Mhm.
not like an outwardly. It's not like a wild claim to make when
No.
you're a bunch of hunter gatherers living in
Yeah, you have no
Saharan Africa.
technologies, and like women would obviously, men were just like physically domineering, and like of course you'd be the one that would hunt, and then women would like cook and stuff and take care of the kids because they're more predisposition to want
Yeah,
like that maternal instinct or that like, nurturing instinct. Yeah,
yeah, and that idea just got passed down throughout the years, and some people left it behind, some others didn't. It's it's whatever.
yeah. I think that like technology has a huge impact on it, and I think that the
Hmm.
biggest we'll say problem like that we have as a society is that we moved so very quickly technologically in the past 100 years that we're still trying to figure out what gender norms may or may not be necessary. And
Yeah.
that's the biggest problem I think that we're having right now because it was fast, like especially the last 20 years, fast, like huge
Hmm.
strides in technology. Like when I was young, like I didn't even get a flip phone until I was like 16, and that was like 14 years ago. And now like everybody has like a computer that's more powerful than like a fucking PlayStation 1 in their pocket, which is nuts.
Yeah.
We went fast.
Yeah, it's crazy how many flip phones I went through, like, in my early days of elementary school. Like, I swear to God, I went through so many fucking flip phones.
Really? See
Did you go
now.
through the same thing?
No, I got one when I was 16 and I was it. And then like I got a new phone when I was 20 and then like, um yeah, Jesus Christ. No,
Yeah.
yeah. No, I actually never really got phones. Like I'm older. I'm 30. So like,
Mhm.
technology is newish to me. I'm surprised cuz I was a big computer gamer and everything and like even now I struggle to keep up, which is nuts, and I would consider myself above the line of technological
It's
savviness.
crazy because I I recently just dropped the habit of playing video games.
Oh, really?
Like, that was just a thing that I just dropped, like, really suddenly, too. Like, I was, like, a super hardcore gamer. I was, like, a huge Dark Souls fan. Um, I actually had this sort of ritual I would do every now and then whenever I would go and play Dark Souls. Do you know who MF Doom is?
No, I have no idea. Is that
Well,
in
he's like,
Oh, is it like a streamer or something?
no, no, no. He's my favorite rapper, and what I would do
Ah,
is I would go and have two very specific albums on loop whenever I play Dark Souls. And that was just what I did. But then one day I was like, I'm not really feeling like playing video games, and I don't know if that was just because I was depressed or I was just more interested in learning languages or whatever. But I just kind of stopped doing it.
no, I totally get that. I was like that too for a very long time, and then now it's my job. So like it's like it's really a convenience thing. Like for a very long time, I barely played video games. Now I'm a full time
Hmm.
streamer. So like when I'm not doing content like this, I'm playing video games, or if I'm on at night, I just stream and talk to people. So it's very much a luxury to play games, honestly, to have time to play games and energy. Because when I would get out of my job, I
It's
just wanted to just lay in bed. I was tired.
it's definitely strange because I started my TikTok account like last September,
Mhm.
and now I have like 70K followers. It's insane because not to try and like fucking stroke my own dick or anything, but when you get famous so quickly, and when you just get famous in general, like online, so many different doors open for you.
Uh-huh.
Like you get like access to these, you get like back doors, like these sort of like secret clubs, and like you get all these opportunities. And it's so strange because you don't view social media as a way of expressing yourself. You use it as like a scheme almost, like you're Ed from Ed, Ed and Eddie trying to get a quarter to get a fucking jawbreaker.
Mhm.
You're always like scheming, thinking like, what's the next big thing I'm gonna do? It's so strange how that mindset is just like so instant when you become more famous online.
Yeah, it's interesting because like for me, the only like I not, like I got a couple of advertisement offers, but for the most part, I stick to myself because I think that I'm a tough one to monetize. It's like for like advertisers,
Yeah,
they're not
yeah, definitely the
thrilled.
same for me.
They're not thrilled about supporting Papa God, which is fine. I've got a
It's the same thing for me.
yeah.
Same thing for me.
Someone offered to buy my
Yeah.
account the other day, so that was cool.
For how much?
Like $7,500. I'm not taking it.
All right.
No, it doesn't seem like enough.
Yeah, no, fuck that.
Uh,
Yeah, it's definitely strange because I've always get. Oh, sorry. I always get asked if I would ever get sponsored by Duolingo because I'm a linguist, and I'm like, hell fucking no. Duolingo sucks dick.
you don't like Duolingo? Duolingo's
So
cool. I don't even. I've never used Duolingo. I just.
Duolingo, Duolingo is very shallow in trying to get an understanding of the language.
Mhm.
Personally, I use books just overall. I have like a whole fucking library. Currently, I'm studying like 4 dead languages, and you're not going to go and get that depth with Duolingo. You're not going to go and get that with really any sort of iPhone app. And whenever I go and like have someone in my comments saying, "Oh, should I use Duolingo for this and this language?" I say, "No, no. Here, I'll go and give you a free PDF of this language's grammar and a dictionary, and I'll go and give you like some books in the language. Have fun." That's just what I do, and that's just what I recommend because I'm not. I'm trying not to be sound. I'm not trying to sound like a pretentious dickhead here, but language is not supposed to be fun.
No,
Language learning is not supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be, very. It's supposed to be used as a tool. Very much so.
that doesn't sound too fun. Yeah, no. I don't know.
No,
I feel like most people in my sphere where language is like a necessity, I guess, because that's why I think that's why people. I mean, I imagine you'd use Duolingo because you want to learn Spanish because you work with a lot of Spanish people, rather than like a love for the languages. I mean, it makes sense for that to like streamline it for people that are just doing it out of necessity. That's what I
yeah.
would say.
The reason why I learn languages is very much so different from how other people learn languages. So I'm currently studying 4. So I'm studying ancient Egyptian, classical Chinese, Latin, and Old English. And obviously, I can't really use that on a conversational level. So the reason why I use those languages is because I want to read and like write text in those languages.
Mhm.
I want to do like translation services and all that. So my reasons for learning languages is very much so different from if a person wants to learn a spoken language that's spoken today.
Right.
And
Yeah.
as such, whenever I go and have comments saying like, what are some good tips? I'm oftentimes left scratching my head because my approach and the reasons why I want to learn a language and the way in which I learned them is very much so different than how a person who's doing a foreign exchange would learn it. Very different. And oftentimes I just go and say, take notes, study grammar, and take it seriously.
Right, yeah, because you actually love languages. So most people ask from a place where they don't fucking like languages at all, and they're just trying to look for like. I imagine you have difficulty empathizing with that because you actually like. I'm assuming that you love
Yeah.
learning languages. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. People always go and ask me, "Oh, but like the grammar is so difficult. I hate grammar." Bitch, I fucking love grammar. What are you talking about? That's like the best part.
You love
What do you
grammar. All right.
mean?
I have a question. What do you? I heard this the other day. What do you think of Latinx? People are saying that. Somebody said Latinx instead of like Latino or Latina.
It's perfectly fine.
You think it's fine? I think
He's
it's
using
alright
the
too.
language.
It's basically
Yeah, I
like
mean,
they them, right? I'm fine with they them. I don't give a fuck.
yeah, from a linguistic perspective, it makes complete sense.
Yeah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of a desire there is. It's usually people who aren't like trans that talk about this shit, though. That's the most annoying part.
Yeah.
For me, at
Well, I
least.
mean, if people want to use a language a certain way, then so be it. Who am
True.
I to go and yeah.
Yeah, true.
So we were talking in the Discord chat, and you wanted to ask about why my Discord ID was so funny.
Oh yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
to
The
explain
the
that to you
fucking
right
Discord
now.
ID is like a bunch of. Can I show people your ID? Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Not like
That's
crazy.
absolutely
I don't need to
fine.
show them the numbers and stuff, but this is his Discord. This is his Discord name. It threw me the fuck off. I'm gonna put it in the chat. Yeah, it was crazy because you sent it. I was like, "Hey, what's your Discord?" And you sent me. It came up with the numbers first, and then those Arabic numerals. And I'm like, "What the fuck's this guy sending me? Does he have his mind?" And then I asked again. You're like, "Isn't that it?" And I'm like, "Get the hell out of here!" But I tried, and I'm like, "Oh, well, fuck me. Sorry about that."
Yeah. So the reason why it's formatted this way is because Arabic is written from right to left as opposed to left to right.
Oh, well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I'd like to show you why that is. You see, around like 2100 years ago, 2100 BC,
Mhm.
in Sinai, Egypt, there was basically these Phoenician coal miners who wanted to be able to communicate with each other in writing. Now, in that time, there were only in that place, there was only Egyptian hieroglyphics, and that was very complicated. It didn't, it wasn't available for the common man who only got paid like a fucking $1 a year, right?
Right.
So what they did was they used a simplified form of those hieroglyphics where one glyph represents one sound, and that was called the Phoenician abgad, as it was now called. And it was called abgad because that was named after the first 4 letters of the alphabet. But it was very strange. It didn't write down vowels. It was written from right to left, but it was super popular. It gave the common man a way for them to become educated. It gave them an opportunity to become literate, and it blew up throughout all the Mediterranean. It even got so far as Southeast, Asia and India and those places. It spread really far. And as it spread, people started to use the Phoenician alphabet in different ways. So once the alphabet came to Greece, right, the Greek people looked at this and were like, okay, well, that's cool, but there are a lot of letters here that represent sounds that we don't have. So why don't we go and turn these into vowels? So for instance, the letter Ain, which is basically just a circle, turn into omega, and that makes the O sound, and that's where we get O from. That's just an example. And the way that the Greeks wrote that alphabet was, it was written from left to right, but then once you reach the end of the line, it was written from right to left. So it made this sort of zigzag pattern. And then eventually, when that Greek alphabet evolved into the Latin alphabet, the Roman people just kind of standardized that into a simple left to right action. So that's the Greek alphabet. But there was also another category of the Phoenician alphabet called the Aramaic alphabet. No, the Syriac alphabet. I'm sorry. And that retained its right to left direction, and that evolved into the Arabic script, the Hebrew script. And if you want to go and accept some theories, it also evolved into the Devanagari, which is the Indian alphabet. So you have all these seemingly unrelated writing systems that actually evolved from a common ancestor. So the Greek alphabet, Germanic runes, Latin alphabet, Cyrillic alphabet, the Arabic abjad, Hebrew abjad, they're all related to each other. They all descended from the same writing system.
Which is Arabic, you said, right?
Yeah, the Phoenician alphabet.
The Phoenician alphabet. Okay.
Yeah,
And is that so? That's
Arabic
what. Is that what our language is rooted in as well?
So yeah, we reuse the Latin alphabet, which came from Greek, which came from Phoenician.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Very interesting. Okay. Damn. I thought that white people created everything. What happened? What the fuck?
What are you trying to say, that the Egyptians weren't white?
No, everybody was black now, according to New Age rhetoric.
Yeah, we know
ridiculous.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody, Native Americans were black now too. People put a lot of emphasis on their skin color.
I've seen those. Yeah, it's Fucking stupid.
It's very bizarre. I don't know
But
why people care so much. It's just interesting. Like, who even cared if it was true? Like,
yeah,
why do you
like
care? It's like we were better
if it's
because we're
true, why do
black.
you care? Yeah.
Yeah, like you telling me this language, it's very interesting, but I'm not like shattered because white people didn't create language. Like, who fucking cares? It's just interesting. Like, it's just
Yeah, it's not. Well, the thing is that writing wasn't invented just once either. It was actually
oh,
invented
really?
5 times. It was
So,
yeah. So it's
okay.
like cheese. You're right. It was made independently in different areas. So we had Egypt, right? That's number one. But then we have Mesopotamia. That's like Iran, Iraq, of those places, like the Middle East. That was cuneiform.
Hmm.
Then we have Chinese characters. Then we go to Mexico, and that has like Nahuatl glyphs, Mayan syllabary, all that. And then we have the Indus River Valley civilization, but their writing system is yet to be deciphered.
Hmm.
And the really cool thing is that all of these writing systems, like, started off as logographic, meaning that one symbol represents one idea or concept, like Chinese characters. Right?
Okay.
It wasn't like an alphabet, it wasn't anything like that. However, as the writing system evolved, they had a tendency of straying away from that system of writing and turning to something else. So for the Egyptians, it was like an alphabet system, but for the Sumerians and the Nahuatl people, it turned into like a syllabary where one glyph represented one syllable. And in my opinion, that is the single most important development that humans have ever made, ever.
What's that? Like
That is the most
the
the
alpha?
the idea of writing down phonetic meaning into writing as opposed to semantic meaning like meaning and stuff.
I see.
The idea
Okay.
of writing down sounds as opposed to meaning. That was the single most important invention in human history because it allowed people to be able to communicate with each other from faraway places. It allowed information to be preserved. It allowed more people to be able to write down and preserve their culture and their everything. And it allowed society to advance like by thousands of years. Thousands of years. Single most important invention in human history.
I mean, that makes sense because it's a little more universal. Because I imagine a lot of those
Yeah,
sounds were
exactly.
very cultural. I mean, I don't know what the fuck sounds
Mhm.
they're making, but I know that a cow's moo in America
Yeah,
is like interpreted differently than everywhere else.
yeah.
Like, how the fuck do French
hmm
people moo for a cow?
I don't,
I don't know.
I
I
don't
saw like a
fucking care
Family
about
Guy.
French people, man.
I
I
saw
don't
like a
fucking care
Family Guy
about French
episode.
people.
They moo different, but you get my points. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah. So that idea of a word coming from a sound, like a sound effect, is called onomatopoeia. I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure you've heard of it.
I've heard the
But
word before. I never
that
knew that it had any practical application. I thought it was just a meme. You know?
yeah, so that's a linguistic term, and it's where we get the word crow from. Um, so let me go and provide more history. So languages like English, Latin, Russian, Persian, and Sanskrit are actually all related to each other. They
Hmm.
all descend from a common ancestor called Proto-Indo-European. At least that's what we call it, and it was spoken around like 4,500 years ago, north of the Black Sea. And using its descendants from this single language, we're actually able to sort of reconstruct what that language might have been like. Because despite the fact that we have no writings of it, we're able to reconstruct it regardless. And we've been able to find out that the Proto-Indo-European word for crow is goros, and
Okay.
that means like caw, and that's where the word crow comes from. It's an onomatopoeia
Hmm.
that comes from a crow's caw.
That's
So
interesting.
that I've always found that to be interesting. Yeah,
Jesus, it's so complicated. Very interesting. Very,
it
very
is
interesting.
complicated, but it's very systematic.
It's best left to the nerds. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah, fucking dweebs.
Oh, that's funny. That's interesting though. My chat's like
Yeah,
my head hurts. Yeah, it's funny though. It's interesting. It's very interesting.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think no, nothing. I imagine people wouldn't like the whole neo-pronoun thing though. Is that you know? I
No, I mean linguists are a lot more laid back than some people
yeah
think. People always say like, "Oh, well, I mean, it's actually thou instead of you."
yeah.
We're not like that.
I could see
Not at all.
why gender never really made its way into these languages anyway. It seems like a general not necessary for language overall. Like how many languages actually have gendered language in it? Not a lot.
Well, the idea of gendered language is very much so like a European thing. We have like gender nouns, but the word gender isn't really used in other languages. It's just noun classes, like they're just categories for nouns.
Like what kind
So
of
for instance,
categories?
Swahili. So Swahili has some complex noun classes. So, for instance, like in languages like French and Spanish, we have the masculine and the feminine, right? Well, Swahili has like 17 noun classes. There's like 17 of those.
Really?
And it depends on like the type of noun. So if it's like, like a man or like a body part or like something found in nature, those have their own separate categories.
Really? A body part? That's
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Speaking of body parts, some languages don't have words for like separate words for fingers and hands and arms. It's all just the same name.
Really? Like arms and fingers
yeah.
are the same name? What the hell are they thinking?
Well, I mean, it's just they never thought of it as being like a separate kind of thing.
I guess it wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
We have a word for everything.
Dude, I think that's just white people naming everything.
Yeah, we gotta keep everything categorized. It makes everything easier.
Yeah.
Or less easy. I don't know. It makes you sound smarter.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to go back because you seemed a little bit confused when I was talking about things like language reconstruction. So do you mind if I go on a little bit?
Yeah, you can talk about it again. What exactly do you mean by like language reconstruction?
So something that we can do with languages that are related to each other is that we can look at similarities between those words, and actually, with our knowledge of how the sounds in languages change over time, we can reconstruct what that common ancestor word is. So everyone go and grab your notes. Let's go and reconstruct a word. So we are going to go and reconstruct the Proto-Germanic word for stone. So let's go and look at all the languages that Proto-Germanic evolved into. So let's go and take English, Dutch, Norwegian, German, and Swedish. Right. So we have stone in English. German has Stein. Norwegian has Stein. Swedish has Sten. And Dutch has Stein again. So what are we noticing with similarities? Well, we have an ST type thing, right, at the beginning, and then an N at the end. So we're fairly certain with those similarities that the Proto-Germanic word for stone had those like ST and then those Ns, because they carried off and they evolved and they were preserved in those modern languages. But we have a bit of a problem with the vowel in between them. So, for instance, English is O, German is I, and the other ones are A. So which one do we choose? Well, something else that we can do is that we can, with our knowledge of sound shift, we can actually make a pretty good educated guess. So let's go and compare the Old English word for stone, which is called ston, with a long ah sound. In various runic inscriptions, there was a word called raichan, which means roe deer. And that raichan word evolved into rach in Old English. So from this pattern, we can determine that if it was an ah sound in Old English, it must have evolved from an I sound in Proto-Germanic. So we can pretty safely guess that it might have been an I in Proto-Germanic. And we can confirm this with another extinct language that is of that same family called Gothic. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but
I've heard the word before, yeah.
Yeah, Gothic refers to a language that was spoken around the 6th century, and its word for stone was steins. And considering that Gothic was a lot closer to Proto-Germanic than English was, English is now, we can pretty safely can say that this is just a confirmation, and that the Proto-Germanic word for stein was stein. Sorry. But there's something else that's been bugging me, because there's an S at the end of the Gothic word for stone, the steins. Where's that S in other Germanic languages? Well, it dropped off. You see, in other languages that are related to Proto-Germanic, like Latin and Greek, it has like os and us as like endings for certain nouns. Well, Proto-Germanic must have had the same thing. It has os, and we've been able to reconstruct that grammatical ending despite the fact that we don't have any written or spoken evidence of that grammatical ending. So, therefore, the root word and the grammatical ending for the Proto-Germanic word for stone is steinos. And we have been doing this for the past 200 years, and with languages that are thousands of years older than just Proto-Germanic. Like, just recently, there was a linguist that reconstructed a language that was over 18,000 years old. So we are able to do a lot with just looking at the similarities between languages that are related to each other and then tracing it back to a common ancestor. We can do a lot with it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually rather interesting. I do have one last question before we end off, though, because somebody asked me about asked the Yugoslavian language, or like Serbian and Croatian and etc. That's what that did. That's what they asked in general. So they wanted me to ask you about that. They said, "Hey, Papa, could you ask me? Could you ask him about the Yugoslav languages, like Serbian, Croatian, etc.?"
I'm guessing that they're referring to the fact that they, despite the fact that they have a different name, are very similar to each other. At least that's what I'm getting at. And that's a very common occurrence. Oftentimes, nationalist identities will supersede the linguistic relationship of various languages. So, for instance, another example is Hindi and Urdu. They're different names, and they're written with different, alphabets, but they're pretty much the same language. They're very similar to each other. And the same thing goes with Serbian and Croatian. They're very similar to each other, despite the fact that they have completely different names. So yeah,
Huh.
I hope that's what they're referring to.
Probably. They don't even know what they're referring to. They're fucking. They're stupid. They have another. They have.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
Yeah, I mean, Twitch chat isn't known for being the most intellectually bright.
They're my babies. They're my babies. They wanted me to ask.
Yeah.
They wanted me to ask every guest that I have from now on if you've seen my pickle before. That's the.
I haven't. Can I see?
I don't know. I mean, there was it got leaked. So, there you go. They're happy that I asked that question. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now they're asking if you have Amazon Prime to use your Prime sub on me. So I'm not
I do have an
asking.
OnlyFans though.
Oh,
I do have an OnlyFans though. If you guys want to subscribe to that,
is it a language-based OnlyFans or is it like a legit?
It's a language-based OnlyFans. So
yeah,
I'm currently doing a series.
Drop the link
on it called Breaking Down. Yeah, okay.
Drop the link.
So I'm currently doing a series called Breaking Down Beowulf, where episode by episode and stanza by stanza, I'm breaking down and translating the Old English epic poem Beowulf, and hopefully by the end of it, I'll have a nice, modern English translation.
So you're putting that on. You're putting that on OnlyFans?
Yeah, I'm putting that on OnlyFans. I thought it'd be funny.
Oh yeah, why not? Is it like are you doing it in like video format? Oh, I think he died. He's dead, guys. You're a new follower, hey. I think he disappeared. I think he's like, there we go. Oh, I think he disappeared. All right. Well,
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I must have cut off. But yeah, let me just go and pull up my OnlyFans and tell you all about it. It's just a flat $5 a month rate.
Mm-hmm.
You have access,
and it's
to pretty much everything.
It's all PG-13.
Yeah, all of it.
Well, it's not even PG-13. It's like fucking P or G.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then you guys can watch we read Beowulf in English.
Yeah, exactly. It's people always go and say that, oh, is Old English just like like modern English but with fucking these and thous? And I'm like, no, it's completely different. It's a completely different language. And they don't believe me. They say like, oh, you're full of fucking shit. It's just like, it's just fucking English. And I'm like, no, I can read you some Beowulf in Old English, and you can see how different it is. Beowulf. Ooh, do you want me to do that? Do you want me to read you Beowulf in Old English?
I don't know if I want to hear the whole thing.
Oh no, I can show you a stanza.
Yeah, give us a stanza of Beowulf, so everybody knows that it's not English.
Okay. So, let's see. Do you want me to give you the English translation first, or do you want me to do it afterwards?
No, give us the normal thing. Let's hear it.
Okay. So this is the first line, the first couple lines. Hat. We gardinan jardagum, ter kunniga frunja vrunam, hu tha adelinga sillen fremedon. Oftil shaving, shadna fratum, monigum maithum, mild setla ofteach, eu sol de erlas. Sudan arrest wild fairshaft fundin.
What is that? What the hell does that mean in English?
So this means, listen, we have heard already of the Spear Danes and how their kings amassed great glory, and how the princes did feats of valor. Often, shield-shaving pillaged the great mead halls of the many warrior clans, and ever since he was first found, the frail thing, the Earl has sown great terror.
Interesting.
So it's a completely different language.
It's very
spoken 1,000 years ago. But yeah, that's
clearly not a very good language. Fucking dead now. I'm just kidding. That's very interesting. People are saying that's some Game of Thrones shit. Yeah.
Yeah. I just copied the link and I'm putting it in your Discord chat right now.
Yeah.
Oh wait, I already did it.
Alright, better not be any nudity in here.
Yeah, no. This is a good Christian language OnlyFans.
There you go. I wouldn't make a bad YouTube series either. There you go, guys.
Yeah,
check it out. I'll try to put that in the video. Although I don't know if I'll be able to do that in a YouTube video, but we'll find out. So, but anyway, very interesting conversation. It was nice to learn something a little different. It was very over my head, but I'm gonna have to absorb it and sit on it for a while. It was definitely very interesting. Yeah. Very Game of Thrones. Now I know. Wait, actually, now I'm gonna ask a stupid question. So, like, is that how the fuck did they make like the Dothraki languages? Is that?
So what they did was the screenwriters, basically they did a fucking contest saying like, hey, language creators of the internet, we're gonna go and make this Dothraki language, and we need your help. And there were like hundreds of thousands of submissions of languages that had full grammars, that had a full dictionary, but only one actually got into this series, and it was a Dothraki language made by David J. Peterson. And they chose it and say, okay, we're gonna put your language in the fucking thing. And yeah, it was just pretty much going from there. The process of creating a language is incremental. It's step by step. So the first thing you're gonna want to do is you have to go and decide who's going to be speaking this language. That's the first thing you have to establish. And then from there, you can go and do things like, okay, let's go and come up with the sounds that are in this language, how the words are going to be ordered, what's the grammar going to be like, all that sort of stuff. So it's incremental, but also very complicated.
What was Dothraki based off of? Just out of curiosity.
So Dothraki wasn't really based off of anything. David Peterson wanted to make sure that the language didn't really sound like anything because he didn't want to be associated with the fucking Dothrakis, right? So that he kind of just made it like his own thing. Though people have commented that it sounds like Arabic and Spanish put together.
Not white though. It's kind of racist.
Yeah, not white. It's kind of racist.
Kind of racist. Yeah. I'm just kidding. All right, man. Well, it was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Of course. Thank you so much, Papa God.
I really appreciate you coming on. All right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Very interesting. Very different from my normal thing. I actually appreciate it a lot. Thank you very much, my man. Have a good one, all right?
Yeah. Yep, you too.
Say thank you so much, guys, to all my Patreons, and a special shout out to my Papa XL Patreons. Without all you guys, I would just be some fat dude screaming into a microphone. So thank you so much, guys. Mwah. I love you all. I want Papa God to pee on my face, but just as a friend. There's nothing weird about that. I want him to pee on my face.